Travis, hey man, how you doing?
You don't look like you're home.
I am in Las Vegas, Nevada, at some relative's house. I've been to Montana and back since we
So
last talked.
proof that you're a sinner. You're in the sin city.
I don't have to prove it. If you know me at all, you'll know there's
Oh,
no issue there.
I know you. I can vouch for that. To all the people watching. This man is a sinner.
Ain't no issue there, brother. I repent.
Well, how are you? You're traveling, aren't you?
Oh yeah, we've been driving. We left Eureka, Montana,
Hmm.
Saturday morning. It is now Monday evening, and we have one more day to travel to get back to Los Angeles. So, um, I highly recommend anybody that's around there go to Craters of the Moon National Monument in southeast Idaho. It's 400 square miles of lava flow, like the end of the world. It's really cool. It's really cool. And they say it happened about 2,100 years ago, and it's just now recovering. Like there's plants growing up and a few trees, but there's whole vast sections of it that you don't see a single living thing on it. And that's 2,000 years later. It really blows your mind. It's pretty cool.
Everybody, I've never been to Idaho, but everybody I talk to who's been there tells me it's just absolutely gorgeous.
It is.
Idaho as a whole, and the what you're describing, that area is just fascinating. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much in the West to see. We go every time we go up and down. We go a couple of times a year, and we take different routes. We took like there's a road in Montana that we took today that's called the loneliest highway in America,
mm,
and it goes through these really gorgeous mountains. It's pretty flat, and um, but you'll pass a car about every 10 minutes, maybe going the other way. It's pretty
mm,
cool.
wow, I'm
Yeah.
jealous.
Don't
Not
break
much
that.
to see in Albany, Georgia. I mean, Albany can be beautiful in many parts, but our
Yeah.
downtown needs a lot of help. But speaking of places that are not great to be, the time in history, the past couple of weeks have just not been good to the United States. We did several shows and kind of took a break, and lots happened since we last talked.
Yes, sir. Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
I think.
Ariana Zarutska died several days before he did, and he's commenting on it. And the next thing you know, he is shot. And then I watched Vodi Balcom commenting on Charlie Kirk, only to have heart failure last week and die.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening in our world. So many of the great leaders of Protestantism, and I don't consider Charlie Kirk so much of a theologian as he was just a fighter for conservative values. But I think he was starting to come in his own. He had been trained by Frank Turek,
Right.
to do apologetics. Which, I mean, I've met Frank several times, and I even sent him an email just to extend my condolences. Obviously, he hasn't responded, and I wouldn't expect him to. He probably got a million of those. But I just felt, I mean, I grieved over Charlie Kirk's death.
Yeah. Me too.
Was so sad about what it means in our country to be in a state where we're in now, where the expression of an opinion could be fatal. I think that's really the takeaway that so many people are having now about this tragedy.
And I was reading an article today just about how the decline of free speech rights in England and Europe in general and Australia and places like that, they just don't get the fact that you have to have that free speech opportunity, even if people offend you and you hate their guts, because without it, we will become tyrannical, and we will slide down the path to, one opinion. Read 1984 and see what happens.
That's right.
We need those nutball, goofy, fringe opinions to keep us in the center.
Absolutely. And we're just not our own. There are people in our country that would like to repeal the First Amendment as much as they want to repeal the Second.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But what they don't realize is it will turn on them.
Sure.
There'll be no one left except the people in power. And then people will be so frustrated and upset, there'll be a revolution, and they'll be insisting on freedom of speech rights. So it's like, take the Jimmy Kimmel issue. Everybody, here's what's really disturbing me. I am disturbed at the right for praising and being happy about Jimmy Kimmel losing his job. I'm still not even sorted out exactly what happened. I know that the various local stations got a wave of protests of people that says, we don't want to watch this show anymore. And so one version of the story is that they simply weren't going to air him anymore. And then the FCC stepped in and made the final decision and so that they put pressure on ABC to suspend him. I've seen no real evidence other than left-wing people say so that Trump was involved in this, except maybe for a few tweets where he says what he often says. Am I wrong about this assessment, or do you know something I don't know? No, I think that's about right. I think with this kind of thing, you never really know what's going on. There's
Right.
always stuff. It's like, why did the president make this decision? Why did the manager of the Dodgers take the pitcher out at that moment? There's always a subtext that we don't know and can't know. And I wish people could just say in a healthy way, I don't know. And I don't need to know. And I'll never know. And, if I have an opinion on that, it's probably an incomplete opinion.
Sure.
Why is that so freaking difficult?
But here's what's disturbing. I don't think that he should have been fired. Now, there are qualifications. I think that the days of all late night television shows, those days, their days are numbered. They don't have many days left.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's a year from now or 10 years from now. But I mean, within a relatively short time, we're going to see the end of late night television as we know it. No more late night shows on any of the major networks. Now, having said that, there clearly was a kind of canceling that happened to him that disturbs me. And I think Ted Cruz is right. I think Ted Cruz said, look, if we celebrate this, then we're guilty of the very same thing that we bemoaned that the liberals were doing to the conservatives for these many years.
Right.
And I'm this far from being an absolutist when it comes to free speech. I think your speech should be as offensive as you possibly want it, and you can still have the right to speak, and you shouldn't lose your job just because you're saying something horrible. And again, I'm almost there as an absolutist. That means I have a few qualifications, but I'm just not going to celebrate somebody losing his job because he uttered something just horrible and offensive. And it was horrible and offensive. He lied. He said things about Trump supporters that just isn't true. And by the time he aired that, he knew that the main suspect, which I have questions about, but the main suspect is a left-wing radical and did this for left-wing purposes. We know this. Now, did he act alone? I don't know. That's the question I have. I've seen angles now, video footage of the shot coming at Charlie Kirk from behind. And it looks plausible that it did come from behind, which means that there was a shooter. And there's even some photographs of a guy standing. Well, there's photograph of an image that looks like a person standing in the shadows holding a gun. But what I hate about, we have all this modern technology and everything's blurry.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you're watching something from the 1960s. I'm like, can't anybody get a clear shot of these people? Like when the suspect was running across I don't want to name him, but when he was running across the roof and he's getting down, that's not a clear image. Why? Even the picture of him in the stairwell is kind of hazy. You and I have clearer images of ourselves, and we have no technology to speak of. I mean, we're low ranking on the technology scale. And right now, you and I have a far clearer image of ourselves on this show than these high state-of-the-art cameras, high-tech state-of-the-art cameras that they have in these venues. And surely a university is going to have the best cameras in the world taking video of everything going on in stairwells. I don't know. I just don't get any of that. But I've long had suspicions ever since he came out and was noted as the suspect. I've had suspicions as to whether he acted alone or not, and I still don't know. But I'm skeptical.
He won't talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. But that said, the current evidence that we have is that he's on some level involved. He's either the shooter or was a patsy. I don't think he's innocent, regardless of whether he actually shot the killing shot. I don't think he's innocent. I think he was an accomplice to this at the very least. But Jimmy Kimmel knew this and he lied. And I want to say, so what? So what if he lied? I mean, it's a joke. He's trying to tell a joke. It's tasteless and all of that. He shouldn't have been fired for that. And I don't know why conservatives praise this, but what's even more disturbing than the conservatives that praised it is the fact that the liberals en masse were praising Charlie Kirk's death and bemoaning Jimmy Kimmel's firing.
Yeah, that's really.
I find that's the most disturbing thing to me.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, there's always fringe idiots that make a bad name for whatever group they're in. There's fringe idiot Republicans, and there's certainly fringe idiot Christians who, people don't know Christianity. They look at that and they say, they're all nuts. Why would I be part of that? So did most, more than 5% of liberals approve of Charlie Kirk's killing? I doubt it. I mean, I at least want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
I hope the percentages bear that out, but we are talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And we're not just talking about people these are furries and just trans people. We're not talking about just them. We're talking about normal everyday people that get up and go to work, teachers, doctors, lawyers, people from all walks of life in the thousands were praising the killing of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
And, I live in a fairly conservative town, and I came across a person one day who said, don't you just wish that somebody would kill Obama? And I said, no, that's treason. He is my president. Well, he ain't my president. And I'm like, well, no, he actually is. He was elected through a due process, and he's your president until he serves out his term. Now, you can not like his policies. I know I don't, but I'm not going to commit treason against he's my president, and I don't wish the death of anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand this mentality. I know that people celebrated the assassination of JFK, and I think that that's horrendous.
Yeah.
And people celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. I mean, this is even if he's as bad as you think he is, his crime was saying offensive things that hurt people's feelings. He was a father. He was a husband. He had a family. He was a loved son. He had a sister. He was a real person who
Right.
had dreams and hopes and so forth, and you snuffed out his life. I mean, what? This country, Jesus spoke of the last days where people's hearts would turn cold.
Yeah.
And I remember reading that when I was in college for the first time, reading the Olivet Discourse and just really thinking about what he was saying. And I don't know if we're in the end times or not. I really don't. But if we're not, then Lord help us when we get there, because
It's going to be worse.
The hearts of people have really turned cold in our day. Uncaring, simply not caring about the plight of another human being is baffling to me. I don't understand it.
Can you imagine, Travis? I've thought about this. If some crusading Christian who had the ear of Christians and was respected actually said, let's as believers in Jesus Christ set the example of how would Christ have left a comment, on a web story? How would he have written a story? What if we all, just as believers, decided we're going to be peaceful and cordial and kind and long suffering in our internet presence? How far would that go? I think that would be an amazing witness.
Mm-hmm.
I
agree.
If we just refused to be shits, if we just refused to do what the internet loves, which is just tear people apart.
I think that the only harsh words he would have would be the words he reserved for the religious establishment. He was very condemning of them, but it took a while for him to get there.
Yeah. And it was always done in love, and there was always repentance possible.
Sure.
Jesus didn't cancel anybody.
No.
Jesus never set anybody up to where they didn't have a chance to return.
That's right. I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's the back and forth and I said when this happened to Charlie Kirk, I said, I really fear that certain right-wing groups will use this as the occasion to exemplify the kind of violence they want to exemplify. And I'm very thankful that the response to Kirk's death has been prayers and vigils, and mourning rather than political violence. And I do think there is a stark contrast between the way the conservatives have acted in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death and the way left-wing people reacted to George Floyd's death. That's been palpable. And the last thing we need is another city to be burned to the ground, and that's what you had several years ago in CNN. Of course, that famous scene where the reporter is standing in front of a burning building going, "This is a mostly peaceful protest." And you're like, yeah, this is not. I can only not believe my lying eyes so many times. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I understand that I might have a perception here. There's a perception problem, but if it keeps hitting me in the face, now we're dealing with a reality problem, and I'm perceiving it clearly. No doubt about it.
Yeah. So you said said before the show that John Searle died.
Yeah, he died over the weekend.
So would
John
you
Searle? Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Tell everybody who he was, and there's a couple of things on that I think would be good to talk about.
Yeah, John Searle, famous philosopher of mind and language, taught at UC Berkeley up until about 2021. I'm probably off on the dates. I've read essays by Searle, but never any of his books, which I intend to do. I just didn't get to him before he passed. But he is, if there's a philosopher that naturalists went to secure the idea that there's no part of us that's immaterial, he's probably the guy. He also made a contribution to the whole issue of intelligence. He was the one that gave the famous Chinese symbol experiment, thought experiment, that pretty much eradicated. Yeah. So that pretty much eradicated the idea that you could have artificial intelligence in the very robust sense that we really think of. So when people use artificial intelligence now to describe ChatGPT or something like that, they're really using the term loosely. They're not speaking of something that is really thinking on its own. And Searle gave this famous Chinese symbol experiment where he said, imagine that you have two people on opposite sides of a door, and they're just sliding these Chinese symbols under the door. Now imagine that you trained me to give certain reactions to certain symbols in Chinese. And I was able to take the Chinese responses to these Chinese symbols and actually slip them under the door back and forth between us. Now imagine that I am a clever fellow and I'm able to respond in such a way that it sounds like I understand what you're saying. So you're sending Chinese symbols under the door, but you're fluent in Chinese and I'm receiving them. And I'm just looking at the symbols and I'm like, well, I've been trained to respond to this with this. And I slide it under the door. And let's say I'm doing it so efficiently and fast, I could deceive you into thinking that I know Chinese. But I don't know Chinese at all. I'm not thinking in Chinese. I'm just able to read patterns and respond, but not really know the content of the responses.
Right.
Well, ChatGPT, for example, does that to us. It's a program that's able to collect tons and tons of data quicker than you and I could. And it's Google search 2.0, because it's now able to spit back to you tons of facts. But it's not thinking. This is a machine that is in no way thinking. And so even when it's giving you responses that show empathy, it sounds like it's being empathetic to you. It's only giving you what it, quote unquote, thinks that you want to hear. But it's not truly empathetic towards you any more than it's actually thinking.
You know, somebody who thinks that ChatGPT or any machine is conscious in their responses is doing the same thing a 3-year-old child does when they see a face in the clouds and they say,
That's right.
who is that up there? It's just our built-in natural drive to anthropomorphize, to see a face where maybe there isn't one, to see a consciousness in a machine where clearly there isn't. And I think, Travis, Christians need to be really careful here, because you and I, a year or two ago, we did a couple of shows on near-death experiences. And I think that with near-death experiences, people are able to leave their consciousness, in however that works, leaves their body behind in a different place and is still conscious and still has sensations and memories enough to come back into their body. And to me, that's just irrefutable evidence that consciousness only comes from whatever that supernatural piece of us is. And you and I have a bit of a disagreement about how that works, but I think the evidence is clear that you don't get consciousness, that first person sound and light show where you're able to ponder things and think about things and choose things. You're never ever going to get that with a machine. And as Christians, we need to understand and be really clear that that's part of the being created in God's image. We are image bearers, and if we ever blur that line between machines on one side and human beings on the other, it's going to have devastating effects, because we're going to start bringing human beings down to the level of machines. We're going to start bringing machines up to the level of human beings where there won't be any difference. And we're going to confuse. We're going to be so confused. We're going to have robot rights. And like you said, before the show, we talked about it. You said, what was it you said? We'll be like.
I think conservative Christians like ourselves who believe in the soul, and therefore we don't believe that the machine that's in front of me has a soul, will be considered racist.
Yes. Yeah.
It'll be a new form of racism that is attributed to a segment in society. Have you seen there's the Matrix movies? I'm sure you've seen those.
Oh yeah.
Now, there was a DVD that was the Animatrix. Did you see that?
No.
It's a really interesting DVD to watch because it's short subjects where they talk about how the machines took over the world. And so it gives you the background story to all the things going on in the movies. And there's a very interesting scene where, as artificial intelligence begins to grow and grow and grow, and we start having these robots built that are just walking around, that very debate arises. So, for example, should an employer hire a robot to work for him when he knows the robot can work all day, all night, far more efficiently than any human can? Should the robot be given rights, workers' rights in this case?
Right.
And so there's a scene in the Animatrix where you have these people protesting the rise of these machines taking over the economy. And there's this machine in the form of a woman, and the crowd bashes the machine, just totally pummels it. And you're seeing the machine like its life ending. And even though, first of all, it's a cartoon. So on one level, it's like there's not even acting really going on here. But even though this is a machine, I remember feeling empathy for the machine.
Yes.
As this machine is being pummeled to death. And I had to remind myself, well, on so many layers, my empathy is unfounded. Now, imagine, though, that really happens, that we have these robots walking around. Well, you're going to have a lot of people fighting vigorously for their rights. I mean, if we're saying in our culture, we have plenty of people right now who want to marry their lampstand. They want to say that they're dogs instead of human. They want to say that they're women instead of men, and vice versa. And we're supposed to take them seriously and have empathy towards that. And I do on one level, of course. But if we're supposed to give them rights such that the girl on the track team can't get her state championship because she's got to make way for the rights of a person who thinks he's a girl, when we started getting into all that, now we're going to up that ante and have robots walking around and they're going to get full rights. There are people that are standing in line to marry these artificial machines now. They're on the market that they're trying to put out, and each year they're going to have a little bit better, a little bit more woman-like robot. The skin will feel more like skin, and the pleasures that come with that will feel more like the real thing, to where you're going to have these people just walking around with no human interaction whatsoever. And they're going to be just fine with that. And they're going to fight for their right to call that a marriage. They're going to fight for their right to uphold these relationships as normative. And why anybody thinks that that isn't going to happen, I don't know why, given all this crazy stuff going on right now as we speak.
You know, you're a pretty smart guy, and you're really educated, and you make good distinctions about things. And yet you admitted when you saw that cartoon, you felt for the robot.
Yeah.
As a Christian, the distinction between human and machine is very clear in your head, and yet you still felt that. Imagine what the word, like you say, for people who don't have that distinction in their mind, where is this going to go? And this is the shape of things to come, brother.
Yeah. Hate to end the show on such a bad note, but what do you do?
What do? You follow Christ, and you fall on your knees, and you fall on your face, and you repent, and that's the only shot we got.
Agreed. God
All
bless
right,
you,
brother.
sir.
You too, man.